Welcome to Wednesday Web Chat. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision 33. And today our substitute at the last moment rescuer and guest will be Duncan Wyeth from Vision 33. We're going to be talking about iDocuments.
For those of you that haven't met me, my name's Duncan Wyeth. I've been involved with iDocuments now for about 6 years or so. And to be honest, if iDocuments had been around when I worked in a finance office, I'd probably still work in a finance office. It was the lack of functionality like this that drove me away from the world of accounting and into the world of ERP systems and automated solutions. So what I'm going to do today, rather than a formal demonstration, I've actually got a couple of pre-recorded videos that we used in the SAP Partner Summit last week over in Dublin. I'm going to run through these. As I go, I'm going to talk about what's going on in the background and take you through a couple of processes. The first process we're going to look at is the purchase order to purchase invoice process, where we'll show you how iDocuments can help you raise a PO, receive goods and services against that PO, and then automatically process accounts payable invoices. That should take about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to look very quickly at how we can use exactly that same technology to automate the process of receiving sales orders via email into your business and converting those sales orders into documents in SAP Business One. With the entire focus on this being really removing the keyboard. We want to take the keyboard out of the process. We want to remove data entry, automate it as much as possible, and deliver two key benefits to the business. Reduce time in terms of processing, so less time processing data, and greater accuracy. And that greater accuracy has a much bigger impact downstream of the transaction processing, which we can talk about towards the end. As we go through, please do think about what you're doing as a business, how you think this might affect your business. And then at the end, we can open it up and take questions from the floor. And depending on how many people we've got, we may even be able to open up microphones and we can all have a chat. So let's start by looking at the purchase order processing. This is the iDocuments dashboard. You can see on the dashboard here, we've got a number of tiles that give the user their pending tasks, what's due for submission. And across the menu at the top of the screen, you can see it's a multi-company solution, and we've got a purchasing menu with various purchasing options from raising an order, processing a requisition, etc. We'll start by raising an order. And the first thing you'll notice there is that we've got 4 order types: item, service, item no quantity, service no quantity. So that's 2 extra order types over and above SAP. The key thing here is it allows you to raise a service order with a quantity. So bear that in mind when you look at how you use Business One today. We're going to work with an item-based order. Select my supplier simply by typing in the first few letters of their name, and it will give me an Ajax search. I could type in their business partner number if I knew it, but I've got an Ajax search there to pull up the supplier. And when I do that, it's doing some filtering in the background. I'll talk more about this filtering in a minute, but we pull the delivery addresses through from SAP, and then we've got here a list of items. Now, those of you that know SAP Business One will realize when you process a transaction in Business One, the first difficulty you have is when you do a list, if you do a lookup, unless you filter that lookup, it gives you everything. So from an items point of view, you can see every item. From a GL point of view, you see every GL code. When you're processing service orders, it's not unusual for those lovely people in marketing, we always pick on them, to go away and raise a purchase order in marketing as a service order against your accruals control account. Why? Well, accruals control appears at the top of the list when we do it alphabetically, and it appears near the top of the list when we just search by GL code in SAP, and SAP gives you everything to choose from. They wouldn't know what accruals control is, so they pick that and then type in the description, copier paper, or marketing services. What we're able to do here, if you look on the screen, we've got this group in the background, and the group actually allows me to filter not just the items, but the dimensions, the projects from SAP Business One that are available to this user. So we can filter suppliers, we can filter dimensions, we can filter GL codes, item codes, and project codes, all based on the user and the group that that user's working in. So as I work this through, you'll see that we've got the dimensions on this line. I've added one line in here. I can copy that line. And when I copy that line, I can then just select the substitute item that I want to put on this line. So I'm going to pick an A002 here. And again, I can copy the line, and I'm going to put in a line for the item A0005. That order, item-based order, I've got my quantities on there. I've pulled all of my pricing through from SAP Business One. It's reading all of the underlying SAP data. I submit that order into the system and it will go into a workflow for approval. Now, when it goes in for approval, I can view all of my outstanding orders here. So on this screen, I've got a listing of all of my purchase orders. The columns on this screen can be dragged around, so you can rearrange the order of the columns. You can remove columns, and you can filter and sort on those columns as well. And the filtering is a little bit akin to the sort of filtering you'll be used to in Excel, where you can have multiple filters, so starts with, contains, ends with, to filter into your data and find the relevant information. What we're seeing here is the purchase order with a status of submitted. That's the third column from the left, and we can see who the approver is. So as somebody raising orders, I know exactly where that order is in the system. Where is it in the business? Who's processed it? Where do we stand in terms of getting that order approved? So I'm going to sign out now and sign in as Andrew Fithian. Now, Andrew will have received an email telling him he's got an order to approve. And he can approve that by logging into the website, selecting the order and approving it, or he could actually approve that document on his mobile device. The other thing to note here is that I've got this option Smart Edit at the top of the screen. I can specify within the iDocument system whether or not approvers are able to edit a document, but not just whether they can edit that document. I can specify whether they're able to edit specific fields. So we might want the first approver to be able to edit the items or the descriptions. We might want the final approver to be able to edit the tax. The final approver could be somebody in finance, for example. So we've got this Smart Edit function throughout the approval process. The approver can either edit it, approve it, or reject it. And in this case, we're going to approve the document. And when we approve that document, it will receive a status in iDocuments of approved. And we'll be able to see that status when we go log back in as the originator and view all of our purchase orders. And you can see it's approved. Now, even at this stage, I can't issue that to the supplier because I don't have a PO number. You can see this field here, PO number is blank. And that field's blank because we haven't gone off to SAP and synchronized the data yet to get the purchase order number. But that's exactly what's going to happen here. So in the background, there's a synchronization engine. It runs with our software sort box. It's going to take that data. And if I refresh this screen now, it's synchronized it, and you'll see we'll get purchase order number 1669. That has come straight from SAP. So we know, now we've got the order number, we know it's an SAP. Next step in the process, I'm going to receive the goods. So if I roll this on, you'll see that I can email that to the supplier, or I can go in here and say, copy to GRN, just as you can in SAP. I could remove these lines. I could take any one of these lines, change the quantities, do all the edits I need, and then I hit the issue button, and it will issue that document and create the GRN. And when it synchronizes to SAP Business One, we will get a GRN number. And you can see now we've got PO 1667 and the GRN 1366. So it's synchronized to SAP Business One. It's exactly the same process you go through in Business One. The advantage of doing it in iDocuments, with the purchase orders in iDocuments, it's a little bit easier to process the POs. It's far less error prone than it is doing it in SAP Business One because we can filter the items and the GL codes that you can work with. We give you more flexibility around the GL codes and the order types, so you can process service-based orders with a quantity, which gets over a hurdle that a lot of people have with Business One, where they create non-stock items just so they can raise a purchase order for them and put a quantity on. And we give you more manageability around the orders in terms of viewing all of your orders on a single screen. I'm going to roll this on a little. And the next stage in the process, now it's been GRN'd, we're going to get an invoice. So if we look at the invoices, in just a second, it'll pop up an email. And on this email, we've got two invoices. The first one relates to the order that we processed. So if we look at this invoice, you'll see that we've got the order number 1669 quoted on here, the invoice number, invoice date, everything else applicable. And that will process through from the email. We've then got another invoice on here, which is different in that there's no order number. We're going to do some magic with this transaction. Anybody that's processed AP invoices into SAP Business One, particularly where there isn't a purchase order, will know you've got to go in, you've got to enter the lines, you've got to put all the information in, and it's a real drag and it takes time. Easy if it's one line, difficult if it's 2 or 3 lines, a real pain if it's 5 or 10 lines. So we're going to automate that process, and I'll show you exactly what happens. So we send this email in. goes to a predetermined email address, in this case, iDocuments PI. You'll have your own email address to process it. And then when it comes in, there's some magic that happens in the background. And that magic is the scanner taking the document, processing the document, and matching it to the purchase order in the case of the first one. So you can see we've got the order number here, we've got the GRN number. So we've got a match and it's put it through. And in the case of the second one, it's going to automatically extract the data and process that data using machine learning and artificial intelligence against GL codes. It will create a service-based invoice for me to submit. So if we look at the first one, open the document up. On the left-hand side, we're going to see the header data. On the right-hand side, we can see the invoice that we just sent in by email. Down the bottom here, you can see that we've got the GRN number, the purchase order number. We've got a perfect match here, so everything's fine. I don't need to do anything. I could edit this document, save it from grid, or I can submit it. When I submit that document, it will go into the workflow, and the workflow will say, I've got a PO, I've got a GRPO, I've got an invoice, they all match. This document is approved under a three-way match. As soon as it's approved, it'll be sat waiting to post to SAP. If we now look at the Connecting London one, so we'll open up the Connecting London invoice. And as I said earlier, the same thing will apply. It's looked at it, it's found the supplier, it's found the invoice number and all the other information it needs. It's pulled that information through, and it's created a service-based order, a service-based invoice against the supplier Connecting London. And you can see down the bottom here, it's pulled through the GL codes using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So if you've got an invoice it's never seen before, and you've got a GL code for consultancy fees, and the line on the invoice said consultancy fees, it would post it to that GL code. It does a fuzzy match. If you can't find anything, it leaves it blank, it highlights the line, and the user simply edits the line when they process the transaction. So in this case, I'm happy with that. I can submit it, I could edit it, and when I submit the document, because I don't have a purchase order or a GRPO, it will submit that document into a workflow for approval. And again, I need to log out, sign in as the approver. And when I sign in as the approver, I've got invoices to approve. I'll be presented with the same screen so I can approve the transaction, and I can approve it or reject it. And when I approve it, it will receive an approval status based on the value of the document. So for the purpose of these demonstrations, we're going to use one approver, but you can have as many approvers as you wish. So those two documents have been processed. They're going to end up in SAP Business One shortly. Just before they do, I'll show you on the invoice layout in here. I think we'll get the invoice layout come up in a second. Come on. Here we go. View purchase invoices. So again, one of the challenges with SAP Business One, when I'm processing a document in Business One, it's difficult to work with all of my documents. I don't know where everything is. Here I can see all of my invoices. And on these invoices, on the right-hand side, you can't see it on this display here, but you can actually see who the next approver is and the status of those documents. So you know exactly where anything is. If somebody phones in from a particular supplier, you can look at their document. As I said earlier, you can filter all of these screens, and I can look at the document, see where the document is in the process. I know who the approver is, and I can chase that approver, or better still, tell the supplier to go chase the approver. And there's even more fields at the top here that allow me to go and filter in, perhaps look at a group and look at all of the transactions in the system. So much easier to work with AP invoices in iDocuments than it is in SAP Business One, simply because they're all in one place. And just to finish that process off, if I go into SAP, look at my order that we started with, which was 1669, and look at the relationship map, you can see that the purchase order has been posted into SAP by iDocuments. You see we've got the goods receipt in there from iDocuments. Finally, you can see that we've got the AP invoice in, the order's closed, the GRPO is closed, the AP invoice is open. We don't do anything on the payment side in iDocuments, but we do make your audit fee drop like a stone because we attach the PDF document to the transaction in SAP Business One. And exactly the same applies if I step to the next transaction here. You'll see this AP invoice, and it's a standalone AP invoice. And that's the one that we processed for Connecting London with all of the detail in there. So the final thing to mention with all of this, last issue that comes up with an AP clerk on a day-to-day basis, or even an AP manager, is those lovely people in the marketing team come in and say, Guys, I need your help here. Months ago, we bought some widgets or some Wahunkdmuffs or some doodahs or whatsits. They're marketing. Those things really exist in the world of marketing. But we bought this stuff and we can't remember who we bought it from. We can't remember what we paid for it. We can't even remember what it was actually called. But the word Wahunkdmuff or widget actually appeared on the document. So we give you a smart search facility with iDocuments that's a bit like an electronic filing cabinet where you can carry out a Google search of all of your documents. You can just put any phrase in here. So I'm going to type in a phrase here of H and S. And when we search for H and S, it will look for every document in the system with H and S in the document. And the key thing to note here is that in this instance, H and S actually appears on the backing sheet of that invoice. It's not in the body. It's not something that we've processed. It's in the backing sheet and it's there for me to process and pick up and view. So easy to go and find individual words or strings on a document, and it will display every document and it tells you where it is on that document as well. So very briefly, that's a very rapid run through what would normally be the best part of a 45-minute presentation. We've got through that in about 20 minutes. But that is the AP invoice processing side of iDocuments. Now, the other thing that's worth talking about when it comes to reducing time and making life a lot easier, let's just come back from that one. Was somebody going to ask a question at that point? Or did I? No, I might have just got some volume coming through from the video that played that shouldn't have played. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to open up another video here. So the other side of this is sales order automation. Now, I spoke earlier about how long it takes to process an AP invoice in SAP Business One. And it's not just Business One, it's any ERP application. They're keyboard hungry, they're data intensive, it's proper data processing, and it takes time. With iDocuments, we can use exactly the same process that we did for that last AP invoice to process a sales order. So this is a purchase order from CTI Computers coming into the business. And if you look at this document, you'll see there's a lot on it. It's a lot of lines. It's certainly more than 40 lines. I think this particular document is close to 50. And we can process that via email. So we just send it by email as we did with the last invoice. And the system will automatically extract the data and generate the sales order form. Now, just as an example, and I know I'm old in the tooth and a bit like Carl, I've got a lot of grey hair, been around the block, so my fingers aren't as fast as they used to be. But I tried processing that particular sales order manually. And it took me close to half an hour to process that order manually into SAP. When I'd done it, I noticed I'd made mistakes, okay? But what happens with iDocuments is it runs through the system. You'll see here, it's going to come into the system, it's going to get processed, and we will get a new sales order scan on our dashboard. So you can see we've got the order scan there. We can open that scan up. And when we open the scan up, we've got the actual document that was processed on the right-hand side. And we've got all of the lines processed. And you can see down the bottom of the screen, it's processed all of those lines. It's picked the item codes. Just drag that back a little bit so I can show you. It's picked the item codes and it's matched those item codes using machine learning and AI. Some of these items exist in my SAP Business One database, some don't. It's matched the ones that it can, and it doesn't match the ones that it can't, or it refers to machine learning, and it will look at the item code and the business partner catalog number if you've got those set up in Business One. It will pull those through and then it will refer to machine learning. When it does machine learning, it looks at orders from this customer and orders from all customers using the description, if it can find anything in there as well. We also, and in the latest version, which I'm not showing you here, in the latest version, we display the SAP Business One price against the orders. So for each line, you can see the Business One price and any variation, and we've got a field for the unit of measure as well. So that document comes in. I can submit that document into a workflow for approval, or I can just submit that document and have it approve automatically. And when it approves, it goes down into SAP Business One as a sales order, ready for me to process. So we can bring that into Business One as a completed order, we can bring them in as draft documents. But you can see I've got all of the item numbers in there, the order number, the full reference, and all of the data from that transaction in SAP Business One. We also attach it, as we did with the purchase order. We attach the PDF in the attachment path on the document. So the key benefit with all of that is, as we process those transactions through the system, we've taken out the keyboard. By taking out the keyboard, we have significantly reduced the opportunity for error. We're not going to make manual errors when we key the data in. We're freeing up time in the accounts payable side of the business for the AP clerks to spend more time making sure they're servicing the customers properly, perhaps even paying suppliers quicker and opening up the opportunity for early settlement discount. I was at the SAP Partner Summit in Dublin last week, and that was a really popular subject, how we can squeeze more from our supply base by early settlement discount. We're improving our ability to manage purchase invoices once they've come into the business, know where those invoices are, and improve our ability to accrue for those invoices regardless of where they are in the business. We know we've got them, we should be accruing for them. And then finally, on the sales order side, we're significantly reducing the time spent processing orders, freeing up time for individuals to spend more time managing the customer, perhaps even upselling, and more importantly, significantly reducing the errors which cause returns and credits further downstream. The cost of returns to any business is significant. If you're in the manufacturing industry or the wholesale distribution industry, those costs can rise extortionately, really. If you ship something, by the time you get it back, it's gone past its sell-by date. If you've got perishables, or if you do manufacturing to order and you manufacture the wrong stuff, you've got problems all round. So it's about getting that balance between automation and using the time that's freed up with automation to enhance the process, both downstream of the order and invoice processing and upstream. That, Carl, as I said, is a rapid run through. I'll stop sharing my screen at that stage and throw it open to any questions. I think we've got one question in the chat. Any questions out there? If you want to take yourselves off mute, ask any questions, away we go.
Duncan, thank you. I had a question for you. From the time you actually get to, really truly engage, if you initiate an iDocuments project, not waiting for the team to be ready and all of that sort of thing, but just, really engage, how long does it typically take for an iDocuments, let's say just the purchasing piece, to be deployed?
Ooh, the old phrase about a piece of string, Carl. Right. In all honesty, it does greatly depend on the complexity of the customer's requirements around approval workflows, groups, etc. But I would say you're looking at probably 10 to 12 weeks from sign off to go live. It can be done quicker, but the things that delay it happening quicker tend to be communication between Vision 33 and the third party, if there is a third party, so the customer's partner. If we're talking about go live on a Vision 33 customer, it should be relatively straightforward. There shouldn't be any issues, and it could be done quicker. The challenge comes with all these things. The people involved have a job to do. They work in finance. They've got a month end. They may have a quarter end or a year end. So their time gets taken out of the equation. The best way I could describe it is to look at, we have to deliver about 84 hours on a project from start to finish. I always reckon the customer can take that number and double it, at least double it in terms of their effort. And most of the days or most of the hours that a customer needs to invest in a project work out at about half a day of elapsed time. So you're probably looking at about 80 days from sign off to go live because of the issues around the customer finding the time to do the things that are needed to get the system configured.
Well, I think
quickest we've done one. We did one for a restaurant chain in the UK in 28 days, start to finish. But I think those days are gone. It'll take anything, I would say, from 10 to 12 weeks on a basis of about, it's going to be about 80 days.
No, I think that's a realistic look at things, always with the qualifier of it could be longer because people sometimes make it longer. But if somebody's looking, like if they're looking at, let's say the holiday season, coming up this next year when they do an awful lot of business, that gives them an idea of when I would want to start to have this ready to really make a difference during my busiest time of the year. So
yeah, and look, if I had a $1.50 for every time a customer has asked for a change to the blueprint, I'd be a rich man. If I had 50 cents for every time I had a customer ask for a change to the blueprint after we started the project, I could retire. It happens all the time because customers don't know what they don't know. They don't know how iDocuments works until they start working through the blueprinting, looking at the system. There's a lot of detail you can never get into in a pre-sales environment. They'll discover that as they start using it, and then they'll say, well, look, I want to make a change here or a change there. But it's like anything, Carl. I always use the phrase crawl, walk, run, sprint. Crawl today, walk in 3 months' time, run in 6 months' time, and sprint at the end of the year. Because you try and sprint now, you'll fall over and break something.
Absolutely. And we didn't talk much about the technology, but this is a cloud-based application, correct?
It is indeed. It's delivered entirely as a SaaS solution. So upgrade free. You'll never need to upgrade again. You don't need to worry about deployment costs. You don't need to worry about service costs. You don't need to worry about anything. We deploy it, we maintain it, we look after it, and we manage the whole thing from end to end.
Sounds wonderful. Well, Duncan, I don't see any additional questions here today, but certainly thank you very, very much for stepping in at the last minute. Excellent job as always, my friend. And we'll look forward to having you back again on Wednesday Web Chat sometime in the future.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Carl, and thanks everybody else for attending.
Thank you much. Have a great day.